What does it actually do to a person to save the world over and over again? Whenever I read a superhero comic or watch one of these shows, something bothers me about almost all of them. They show you what the hero does. They rarely show you what it does to the hero. Take the Joker. He goes after Batman's mind. He hurts people close to him. He challenges the entire reason Batman shows up every night. He leaves damage that follows him for the rest of his life. Many villains work that way, and these effects aren't easy to look past. But when the season ends, Batman shows up in the next one, ready to go. One scene of aftermath at most. Then the slate gets wiped. And I get why. The hero has to be sellable season to season. The world has to stay familiar, but you can feel that choice in the watching. The grief feels empty. The violence means nothing. Even the victories feel hollow. At that point, you're just watching things happen. So what actually happens to a person when the story refuses to let any of it go? I'm Mac, this is Mac and Flicks, and let's talk about the superhero show that doesn't let anyone off the hook. Invincible makes one commitment that most shows refuse to make, the commitment to remember. Every decision Mark makes is a deposit, and the show collects interest. A failure in Season 1 doesn't get cleaned up by Season 2. A decision in Season 2 is still drawing consequences in Season 4. The show treats each season like a running total of damage. You don't get to start fresh, you carry everything forward, and by Season 4, Mark Grayson is deeply in the red. The stakes in Season 4 feel real because the show has been building them since Episode 1. You're watching 4 seasons of interest come due at once. I've been telling everyone I know to watch this show since Season 2. Season 4 gave me the moments where I finally stopped having to convince people, and they just got it. The two characters where this accumulation hits hardest are Mark and his father Nolan. Season 4 pushes both of them to a place where 4 seasons of decisions finally arrive at their destination. The show puts Mark and Nolan on opposite arcs in Season 4, and that choice changes how both arcs land. When two characters are moving in opposite directions at the same time, you can't watch one without thinking about the other. Every Mark scene tells you something about who Nolan used to be. Every Nolan scene shows you where Mark is heading. You get twice the information from the same amount of screen time, and the show trusts you to hold both threads without spelling it out. Mark starts Season 4 more powerful than he's ever been, and more broken than he's ever been. The show put those two things together deliberately. Every season before this one has left something on him that never went away. Season 4 opens with all of it, right there on the surface. Nolan already broke under this pressure decades ago. He's on the other side of it now, trying to work out what that actually cost him. They're mirrors, and the season designed it that way so you feel both directions pulling at once. Let's start with Mark, and specifically with what the show has always understood about how power works in this world. Power is a burden delivery system. Here's what I mean. Every time Mark gets stronger, the show widens the definition of what he should have been able to prevent. The capability goes up, the expected outcome goes up with it, and every failure gets heavier because the bar keeps rising. Getting stronger creates more pressure. The list of things that are somehow his fault gets longer every season. We open Season 4 with Mark in remorse. Real, ongoing remorse. He is the reason so many people have died. He was not able to stop it. And that awareness sits in every scene he's in. The seasons map it out clearly. Season 1 Mark hesitates. He's new to all of this. And when he's confronted with real stakes and real violence, he pulls back. He second guesses himself. He tries to find the option that doesn't require him to fully commit to how dark this world actually is. Season 2 Mark carries guilt. The hesitation of Season 1 has consequences. People die because of his uncertainty. Because he held back when he should have acted. Because he was still trying to be the kind of hero that just doesn't exist in this show. And he knows it. He carries every one of those deaths into every fight that follows. Season 3 just buries him deeper. By the time that season ends, the guilt has turned into something angrier. And then Season 4 Mark is in rage. Season by season, it builds. This is consequence-driven storytelling. The decisions compound. They don't reset. And by Season 4, you're watching a person who is 4 seasons deep in damage with nowhere to put it. And the power thing makes it worse. Every time Mark gets stronger, more falls on him. More is expected. When he fails, more things become somehow his fault. The list of things he should have prevented gets longer every season. But Season 4 goes somewhere deeper than the accumulation. Invincible treats its fights as a diagnostic tool. The villains are pressure tests. Each major fight this season designed to reveal something about where Mark is internally, what the violence is pulling out of him, what he's accessing to survive, what version of himself he's becoming under pressure. The fight is how the show takes his temperature. That's what people mean by internal conflict driving external conflict. The punches are just where the real fight becomes visible. And the temperature has been rising for 4 seasons. It starts with guilt. Sitting quietly since Season 1 one underneath everything else, shaping every decision he makes, every moment where he wonders if this time he'll actually be enough. By season 4, that guilt has nowhere to go anymore. The anger leaks outward into situations where it has no place, into conversations, into fights that don't need the level of force he's bringing, into his own head when he's trying to process something and finds that the anger gets there before the thought does. It ends up everywhere. And underneath the anger is fear. The fear of knowing what's coming and not being able to stop it. The fear that's been growing since the moment he found out who his father really was. Because if Nolan could become Omni-Man, what is Mark capable of? What's already in there, waiting for the right amount of pressure to bring it out? That question is everywhere in season 4, and the answer the season keeps giving him is bad. Every time he pushes too hard, every time the anger shows up where it has no business being, every time he survives something by accessing a part of himself he doesn't fully recognize, the gap between him and Nolan gets a little smaller. The show makes sure you feel it. It's in how he moves through situations. In the moments where he makes a choice his season 1 self would have been appalled by. Mark started this show with a clear idea of what being a hero means. Save people. Hold back when you can. Do the right thing even when it costs you. But the more this world pushes back, the less those rules hold. There are moments where holding back gets people killed. Moments where the right thing and the survivable thing are completely different things. And eventually, the line between being a hero and just surviving starts to disappear. Season 4 is where that line actually crosses. There are 2 writing decisions in this season that I keep coming back to. They're in episodes 1 and 5, and I think they're paired deliberately. Episode 1. The Sequid aliens have taken over Russ Livingston, an innocent astronaut. The hive mind is about to breach containment. Earth is minutes from a complete takeover. The device that could stop the Sequids without killing the host is delayed. The containment dome is at 1%. Mark is right there. The only way to stop it is to kill Russ Livingston. He doesn't hesitate. He kills an innocent person to save the city. Now pay attention to what the show does immediately after. The scene that follows is scored to nothing but thieves, If I Get High, a song about reaching for something that numbs you, about the gap between what you need and what you can actually have. The show scored that aftermath with a song about relief that costs you. That choice tells you something about Mark's internal state that the visuals don't say directly. He survived this by accessing something, and there's a part of him that found it. In season 3, Mark told Oliver he would be willing to use lethal force against genuine threats. That was words. This makes it real. There's a term for this kind of moment, a point of no return. The idea that some decisions change who the character is permanently. The Mark who existed before that kill is just gone. And the show tracks that across everything that follows. And here's what the show understands about that moment. It works. The city is saved. And that makes the line he just crossed harder to see the next time. Because once something like that solves the problem, it stops feeling like a last resort. It starts feeling like an option. Episode 5, Conquest. This is where the show gives you the second half of the pair. The Russ Livingston kill was a decision. Conscious, deliberate. Mark chose it. What happens in the Conquest fight is something else entirely. Conquest ambushes Mark and Oliver in space, goes after Oliver first, mocks Mark's relationship with Eve, and then, when the fight reaches its worst point, Conquest punches entirely through Mark's abdomen and pulls his entrails out. Look at that image. Mark is literally emptied out. The outside just caught up to what's been happening on the inside for seasons. Violence as character expression. The physical destruction is information about who he is right now. This time, he doesn't hold back. He chokes Conquest to death using everything he has left just to keep the grip. The rage he's been compressing for 4 seasons finally has somewhere to go. And for a moment, the violence actually works for him. It feels like relief. He's been running on empty, and this is the first thing that fills the tank. What I keep thinking about with that fight is how far it is from heroism. Mark is running on survival instinct. The guy who used to second guess every punch is gone. What's left is someone who found the only engine still working and floored it. So you have 2 events in the same season. One where he makes a cold calculation, one where he shuts off completely and acts on pure rage. The conscience goes first, then the control. And on top of all of that, the season adds something the earlier fights couldn't, a threat he has no answer for at all. Then there's Thragg. The show builds him differently from every other threat in the series. When Thragg appears at Viltrum, he decapitates Thetis in one motion, then impales Nolan, then crushes Mark's eyes. This happens right after the Coalition just destroyed an entire planet, and he's the one who makes everyone stop. 1 minute of screen time to show that none of what they just did actually solved anything. Thragg just sits there like something you already knew was coming and couldn't stop. Thragg weaponizes tension through inevitability. Dread is harder to pull off than shock. You have to make the audience live inside the knowledge of what's coming with no way to release it. Every other threat in this show could be beaten, outrun, outlasted. Thragg can't. He's just out there, waiting. And Mark has to keep waking up every day knowing that. He has to keep fighting smaller battles, keep holding things together, while carrying the knowledge that there's something on the horizon he has no answer for. Just dread, with nowhere to put it. That's what Mark carries into the finale. And then the finale does something with it that I didn't see coming. The crisis doesn't end when the external threat ends. Sometimes it starts there. The climax of season 4 is an episode spent inside Mark's head. A person whose mind has been taken over by years of violence, loss, and the terror of knowing an enemy exists that he cannot beat. He sees Cecil impaled through the torso. He sees his friend William's jaw ripped off. He sees Eve's eyes crushed. He sees his mother's head removed. None of these are random. Take a second with that. His mind, under the worst pressure it's ever been under, chose those 4 people and those 4 specific injuries. Out of everything he's seen across 4 seasons of violence, that's what's sitting deepest. Every vision traces back to something he's already seen. Cecil impaled the exact way he watched his father get impaled by Thragg. William's jaw echoing Oliver losing his arm at Viltrum. Eve's eyes, the injury Thragg inflicted on Mark himself, placed on the person he loves most. Debbie, the complete destruction of the one thing that has always meant home. His brain is taking the worst things he's already witnessed and placing them on the faces of the people still alive. That's how this kind of damage works. The past reshapes how you see the present, and the show gets it exactly right. The episode puts you inside his head. Subjective storytelling. The camera stops showing you the world as it is and shows you the world as he's experiencing it. It only works when the show has spent enough time building what's actually in someone's head before it takes you in there. 4 seasons of that. It earns it. When Thragg finally delivers his ultimatum, 37 Viltrumites already hidden on Earth and ready to rebuild, Mark has to make a choice. Fight Thragg and lose everyone. Accept the deal and live with the enemy embedded in his home. He thinks of Eve. He accepts the deal. By this point, he's just trying to keep everyone alive. He saved them, and he's floating alone in the upper atmosphere, exhaling, looking like someone who survived something they're still processing. That's where Mark is at the end of this season. The show has been running a completely different story in parallel. The Debbie scene ends without resolution, and that's a choice. Most shows would have that scene do 2 things at once: express her pain and move Nolan's arc forward. Her grief would be the catalyst for his transformation. The scene would be about her, but its function would serve his story. Invincible refuses that. The scene ends and nothing is resolved. Nolan doesn't get a realization. He doesn't get clarity. He doesn't get a path forward. He gets told to leave and the scene ends. Her pain belongs to her. The show keeps it that way. The show refuses to let her grief do the work of moving his story forward. That's one of the most careful writing decisions in the whole season. From season 2, I haven't seen a comic book show do what this one does with Nolan. Nothing in the genre comes close. And the reason comes down to one choice the show makes about how redemption works. The standard move for a villain redemption is what I call the switch flip. One moment of clarity, one good deed, accepted back in. Clean, fast. Invincible goes for an earned redemption arc instead, where change happens in real time, through real resistance, with no guarantee that anyone will ever accept it. It makes it cost something every single time, because real change doesn't work any other way. Nolan started as a simple character. He came from another planet to conquer Earth. He didn't care about the people there. A mindset built inside Viltrumite conditioning. The strong take, the weak get absorbed. Pure instruction. He followed it for centuries. He understood what he was doing on Earth in season 1, he just didn't care. Then his wife, his son, 20 years of a life he was never supposed to build. All of it started doing something to him from the inside. The gap between what he was conditioned to believe and what he actually felt became impossible to hold together. When he comes back to Earth in season 4, the show gives him 3 scenes, each one in a completely different register, each one refusing to give him anything. The Debbie scene, I already told you why it ends the way it does. She punches him until her own knuckles bleed against skin she can't actually damage. She tells him he killed the man she loved. She tells him that if she was supposed to change him, she failed. And then she orders him out permanently. Art doesn't argue. He just makes it plain that he dresses heroes. Nolan lost that right after Chicago. One line. The scene moves on. And then Cecil. The scene is set physically at the site of Nolan's Chicago massacre. Cecil quantifies it, 2,341 deaths. He tells Nolan he would need to nearly die that many more times before they could even begin talking about what better actually means. When Cecil gives orders, Nolan makes a low, reluctant sound and does what he's told. The old conditioning is still in there. The show is too honest to pretend otherwise. It pushes its way to the surface when someone speaks to him in a way his old instincts read as a challenge. He hasn't finished changing. He's changing every day, and the season shows you how hard that actually is. Nolan's arc works because the story refuses to forgive him faster than the audience can. It takes time. People push back. Nobody makes it easy. And watching him sit with that, episode after episode, is one of my favorite things this show has ever done. Now, the dinner scene. And I want to talk about the song choice, because it's doing more work than people usually clock. Before Mark and Oliver leave for the war against Viltrum, Debbie insists on one last dinner. Everyone at the table. Mark, Oliver, Eve, Debbie, Paul. Scored to Sarah Jaffe's Clementine. Clementine is a song about grief with nowhere to go, about something that's already lost. Nobody at that table says any of that. The scene is quiet, but the song is saying it for them. And honestly, that dinner was one of my favorite moments in the entire season. In a superhero show, a family dinner. That tells you everything about what kind of show this is. I think about that dinner every time this show does something brutal, because everything that hits hard in this show is built on top of moments like that one. The show never announces the mirroring. It never stops to point at it. It just trusts that if you've been watching, you feel it. And here's why that structural choice works so well. Character mirroring. Two characters on opposite arcs at the same time means every scene in one arc changes how you read the other. You watch Mark make a brutal, calculated decision, and you understand what Nolan used to be from the inside. You watch Nolan sit with Debbie's words, and you see exactly where Mark is heading. The two arcs are in constant conversation with each other, even when they're thousands of miles apart. By the time season 4 ends, Mark has crossed moral lines he spent the whole show trying to avoid. And Nolan, the man who crossed those same lines without hesitation for centuries, is sitting with Debbie's words, an Art's closed door, and the number 2341. Mark is becoming what Nolan used to be. Nolan is trying to become what Mark started as. Season 4 is where both of those journeys arrive at their most honest point. Mark is closer to Nolan's old life than he's ever been, making choices he couldn't have imagined in season 1, using parts of himself he spent 3 seasons trying to keep down. And Nolan is closer to who Mark was at the start, trying to hold a line, trying to be accountable, trying to be someone different from what he was built to be. Both of those things happening at the same time, in the same season, is what gives this show its weight. And the characters around them are asking the same question in their own ways. Debbie refusing to perform forgiveness she doesn't feel. That's her holding on to who she is in a situation designed to flatten her into a supporting role in Nolan's story. She won't give him that. Oliver getting his arm ripped off on the surface of a dying planet is what it actually costs to belong to this world rather than just wanting to. Eve hiding her pregnancy to protect Mark from more weight before the war. The show treats that with the same care it gives any fight scene. Every story the season tells feeds the same thing. What's at stake in this show is never the planet. The planet is just the frame. What's at stake is always the person inside it. And by the end of season 4, both of those people are in a worse place than where they started. The war is over, the season ends, and neither of them is okay. Mark floats alone in the upper atmosphere, having just allowed the enemy to embed itself in his home. Nolan carries his rejected apology and the number Cecil gave him like a debt he can never pay off. Nothing is resolved. What gets me about both of those endings is how quiet they are. Mark accepts the deal and exhales. Nolan takes what Cecil gives him and does what he's told. They just carry it. That's what happens when someone's been through enough of this. It stops looking dramatic from the outside. You just move through it. And this show gets that in a way that actually surprised me. Somewhere around the moment Nolan beat Mark half to death over a train, this show figured out that saving the world was never actually the question. It's about what saving it turns him into. And season 4 is where that really becomes impossible to ignore. What being a hero slowly does to the person underneath, that's the show. And it turns out that question has no clean answer, just choices, and the weight they leave behind. And the next morning, when Mark is still there carrying all of it, still trying to figure out who's left. If this kind of analysis is your thing, hit subscribe and drop a like. Follow on the socials too. Links are in the description. See you in the next one.